Morning, guys. Tuesdays are all about commercial real estate. We hear from Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, the Park of Independence. I'm going to talk about equity raise for savvy real estate guys. Okay, I'm going to talk about the EB-5 and I'm going to talk about issuing bonds in Israel. EB-5, getting from China. Here are my thoughts about it. It's very good and very great avenue to get equity, if possible, usually for much larger properties. Interest rates could go for equity around the 8%, if I'm not mistaken. Now, here are my thoughts about it. It's a great way to get equity, but sometimes the bonders who get the EB-5, they come to you and they tell you, I'll get you debt plus equity. I'll get you both. And here's the deal. They'll tell you, okay, I'll get you debt for, let's say, 4% with the first lien on the property, and then I'll get you the equity for 8%. Here are my thoughts about it, okay? When you work with a bank, okay? When you work with a bank, the bank's first interest is to get steady income. If something goes south, the bank first tries to see what can be done because they don't want to go and sell the property and do business with notes and all kind of stuff like that. With an EB-5 that has debt and equity, I would be a little bit worried because they have equity on the other side. If you come and say, listen, things are not so great, they would say, oh, he's in trouble. We may have the other side. I don't know if they'll do that, but for me, it's a red light to have both debt and equity. It sounds like a little bit of a conflict of interest. Now, I would like to speak about the bonds. The bonds in Israel, guys. The bonds in Israel became very popular for guys in America to come and issue bonds here. Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal. The process is crazy. You have to go through a prospectus. They have to look at all your books and everything else, okay? They create a sort of an offshore company. It's called a BVI in the Virgin Islands, right? And this is something that goes through a whole process. Now, the key here is, first of all, your books has to be spick and span. And the second thing, you have to have at least $80 million of equity combined in all the companies so they'll know you don't raise everything. It's very important because that gives them the security, because there's no lien, there's no security on it. The only security they have is your soundness, is your stability, the company's strength. That's what they have, okay? Now, recently came out like in the papers, was all over the papers about Gary Barnett's Excel. He's a developer, and his company, the company is doing a lot better. They got financing, the whole thing. The bond became a lot more valuable, and therefore the interest dropped down because the risk went down. So this is something to think about, but you have to remember that previously you had Urban Corp went bankrupt, and this whole thing raised the whole thing here in Israel, because now the underwriters are really looking for much more stable format, like income producing companies that buy, like in the situation of a lease up or a fix up, but existing properties and not development. That's what they prefer. So we have to remember all that. Again, have to have at least $80 million of equity combined. Don't bother, otherwise you're going to waste your time and money. Second thing, you have to remember one thing. Prospectus is going to drive you nuts. If your staff is not into it and is not willing to get into it, you're going to waste a lot of time and money again. And the last thing, you have to remember your profile of the company. Does that fit the institutional investors here in Israel, and would they want it? So with that, I wish you a fantastic Tuesday from Yerushalayim.